Okay, why don't we begin the meeting? 7:01. We have a quorum. First part is a Wakefield Public Safety Building. Before we go, is there anybody in public participation regarding the public safety building? Hearing none. Shane, you want to start with administrative actions, review of the meeting minutes?
Yep. Yes, we just got some meeting minutes from January 27th, and then we got some invoices. So I sent out the meeting minutes this morning.
Do I hear a motion on the meeting minutes?
I'll motion that we approve the meeting minutes dated Thursday, January 27th, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. Are there any objections to the minutes as drafted? Hearing none, the minutes are approved.
Also sent out 2 invoices, one for left field and one for bond building. First one's left field number 15 in the amount of $10,000 for services through the end of January.
Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion that Chip isn't here, so I don't know what to do now. I make a motion that we approve invoice number 15 from left field dated 1/31/22 in the amount of $10,000 even.
Second.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom. Any discussion? Hearing none. Bill? Well,
Okay,
maybe
here
not.
you go.
Phil? All right, we'll get back to Phil. Jason?
Yep.
Yes.
thumbs up.
Tim?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Janine?
Yes.
And Phil?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yep.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. I get everybody. The next one is for bond.
So I make a motion that we approve invoice number 1 for bond building dated 1/31/22 in the amount of $71,238.87.
Second.
Okay, Shane, I know that it's not been approved by the architect.
Yeah, it's been reviewed. Once you approve it, we'll get it notarized and the architect will sign off on it.
Okay, generally speaking, our process in the past has always been the architect signs it first.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah, that just kicks off the time, but we can do that, Joe. Yeah.
No, we want to have them certify it first. It's always
Okay.
been the process that we've had.
Sure.
So I would suggest, Jason, if you could amend the motion subject to the
Yeah.
certification by the architect.
Yeah, so I'll amend the motion for the bond invoice. Once we are certified by the architect, then it will be fully approved.
Second.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Phil,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Janine,
Yes.
unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all we had. I think Bond, we're going to share some construction logistics
Okay,
and
David,
site plans.
Want to give me act sharing rights?
Oh.
If I don't-
sorry. Where are you? There you are. Okay. Hopefully that worked.
Oh, just did. All right, let's see. Okay, that coming up. Everybody see that all right?
Yep.
All right, so our overall logistics plan hasn't changed, but what we have updated was after some meetings with the user group and the working group and staff, we've come up with a signage plan that we will both post around the site and soon inside the building for those that come often prior to our arrival, how to navigate the temporary entrances. So we're proposing in this particular instance, it'd be around our front gate A, and then there'll be signage that directs people to the temp fire department entrance around the front of the site and then around back through Crescent to the temp police entry. And then we have another version. So if you're coming in from the other side, it'll be the opposite. You'll have a signage from this gate that directs you to the temporary entrances this way. So we'll post signage all along the route, and we'll get that up soon. We're planning to mobilize just ahead of probably the third week in March. We'll be doing some swing space stuff just ahead of that, but the fence isn't intended to go up probably until right at the 23rd or whatever that date was that we started, that we said we would. But we'll be doing some interior swing space stuff ahead of that, but the site won't really change until then. So we'll try to get this out, whatever platform you so choose ahead of time, so that it can be posted. You just tell us what you need and we'll be happy to do it.
Any questions from the committee? All right, thank you, Dave. Is that it?
So for us,
Okay. Shane, anything else on the public safety?
No, it's
All right,
all for us, Joe.
I did speak with Attorney McGrail tonight. He's going to be talking to building inspector tomorrow, and we'll be working with the Board of Appeals to have this, have the building permit, go through all that process that it has to be done. And we'll get further info on that. And if there's any issues, I'll let people know. All right, any other questions regarding the public safety building? Chief Scory, Chief Sullivan, Deputy Chief.
All good. All good, thank you.
All right. Anybody? Thank you very much.
thanks everyone.
All right,
Thank
thanks, Dave.
Thank you,
All
Dave.
right.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, next we go to the high school. Before we start on that, is there any public participation regarding the Wakefield High School project? If you are, raise your hand. Seeing none, go ahead, Shane.
Okay, so tonight for the high school project, we have some administrative actions. We got some meeting minutes from January 27th and February 1st. We have some invoices. We're going to give an overview of the preferred schematic report, which is the second submission to MSBA. We're going to talk a little bit about the MSBA reimbursement policy, just that's a general policy, not specific to our project. We're going to look at some of the feasibility study meetings that are coming up, and SMMA are going to do a sustainability review. So the first item was the review of the meeting minutes from January 27th, 2022.
Do I hear a motion?
A motion that we approve the meeting minutes from the January 27th, 2022 meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, is there anyone objects to approval of the meeting minutes of January 27th, 2022? Hearing none, they're approved.
Thank you. Second meeting minutes were the February 1st, 2022 meeting minutes.
Yep, so I will make a motion that we approve the February 1st, 2022 meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Thanks, Janine. Any discussion? Hearing none, are there any objections to the approval of the minutes for the February 1st, 2022 school building committee meeting? Hearing none, they are approved.
Thank you. Second item on the high school agenda is the review of invoices. We just have one invoice. It's left field number 9, total amount of $22,000 for work up to January 31st.
So I'll make a motion that we approve invoice number 9 from Left Field dated 1/31/22 in the amount of $22,000.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. Phil,
Approved.
Jason,
Approved.
Tim,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Janine,
Yes.
unanimous.
Thank you. So just wanted to go over, as you know, we voted to approve the submission of the PDP to MSBA at the last meeting on February 1st. That was submitted electronically on February 3rd, and we submitted the hard copy binder to MSBA yesterday. So that PDP has been submitted to MSBA, and they're conducting their review of that. We expect to hear back in about 3 weeks from MSBA on that. Following that submission, we move right into the preferred schematic report, the PSR, which is the second submission to MSBA under the program. So I'm just going to go through what the contents of that are pretty quickly. Again, we've seen this before. It's the MSBA Module 3. I think we refer to it as the playbook. It's available on their website, so you can get a lot more information there. But the PSR is made up of an introduction. We'll give an overview of the process since the PDP was submitted. We'll also include a copy of the MSBA review comments and the district's response. As I said, we expect their review comments in about 3 weeks. We'll respond to those, and we'll send that back to MSBA. We also need to include a copy in the PSR. There'll be an updated project schedule. We update that on a monthly basis anyway. That will be included. There'll be a summary of the final evaluation of existing conditions. So as you know, we've done a number of existing condition surveys. Any additional existing condition surveys that are done during the PSR phase will be included and updated in the document. The summary of the final evaluations of the alternatives. As you know, we recommended 3 alternatives to be further studied in the PSR phase. So we'll give a summary of that in the introduction. And then coming out of the PSR, we have to give a summary of the district's preferred solution. So one of those 3 options we will have to choose as a preferred solution to recommend carrying forward to the schematic design phase of the project. So that'll be the one project or one solution that we recommend carrying forward. As I said, the evaluation of existing conditions will describe any additional new information that we find during the PSR phase and what impacts they may have on the evaluation of the final alternatives as we move through this process. And also any testing or inspections that we'll have to do as we move forward into the schematic design will have to be identified, and we'll have a schedule of when we expect to do those. 3.3.3 is a final evaluation of the alternatives. So over the next few weeks, a couple of months, we're going to look at that with our designers. We will provide a site analysis, which includes the limitations, how big the site is. We'll include the building footprints, athletic fields, parking, driveways, and drop-off zones. We'll give a summary of the construction impacts on the students, any necessary relocations, temp facilities, and phasing. We'll look at the architectural and site drawings, how the spaces are organized in line with the educational program. We'll have to line the educational program up with the building design for adjacencies in the programs. We'll start to look at the structural systems. There'll be a narrative on the structural system for the proposed new building. Talk about some of the utilities, how we intend to bring those utilities in. We'll talk about how big they need to be. We'll start to talk about some of the building systems, the plumbing, the HVAC, the electric, and the estimated loads for those systems. We'll also be doing a total project budget. The MSBA's standard form is called a 3011. We'll introduce you to that in one of the next meetings, but we'll have to do a total project budget, and that'll be based on cost estimates that we do with the designer's cost estimator and also Left Field's cost estimator. And then we also have to look at permitting requirements, Conservation Commission and any other permitting requirements that would be required as we move forward. So that'll be listed in the PSR. And finally, as I said, the preferred solution. At some point during this process, we'll need to pick a preferred solution. We'll update the educational program. We'll work with the school department on that to make sure that the educational program aligns with the preferred solution, the building that we pick to move forward with. We'll update the space summary. That's the summary of spaces that are going to be in the building, and we'll have to provide an explanation of any variation from that space summary that we included with the PDP. Sustainability documents, SMMA are going to present some sustainability information tonight, so we'll include that in the PSR. We're going to do building plans and site plans. Half-size plans need to be submitted with the PSR. Again, the total project budget, how we arrive at that, and the updated schedule is included in the PSR. And then finally, the local approvals and an action letter will have to be signed and submitted with the PSR. That's the letter we included with the PDP. It's a similar one for the PSR that we will present to the building committee when we're looking for approval to submit. Coming out of the PSR, we're hoping to get an approval to move into schematic design. So we'll submit the PSR. MSBA will review that and review with the district and the designer. We'll address any questions or comments they have. There is a meeting with the MSBA at that point. It's called the MSBA Facilities Assessment Committee Subcommittee. So we'll meet with those, go through the PSR in some detail, give them an overview of what we did, how we came to our solution, and why we think is the best solution to move forward. Following that FAS meeting, if there's any questions or comments, we'll respond to those. And all going well, then we will go to the MSBA Board of Directors meeting in June of this year and get approval from them, the Board of Action letter, to move forward into schematic. So that's the PSR. As I said, there's lots more information on the website, but I'm happy to answer any questions on what we're doing during the PSR phase.
All right, are there any questions regarding the PSR?
This is Phil. I got a quick question. Anywhere in this process with PSR that the MSBA is going to be seeking what like the town's temperature is for this project? Does that come into this phase, or is that later on in the process?
In terms of the vote, Phil?
Yeah, like the goals, potential costs, like, you know, because it'll be a little more narrowed down because we'll have a preferred option at this point. Like, do they ask that at this point, or does that come later on in this whole thing?
I think that will come later. As part of this, we include, you know, any public meetings, presentations that we do, including the building committee, the public forums we've done, presentations to the school committee. So we include all that information with this, Phil. Do we give them an idea of what way the town is leaning? I'm not sure we know at this point, but certainly we outline that process, how we've publicized this and the meeting materials that we've provided to the public during the process.
Right, that's what I was like, because we don't really know. So I was assuming they wouldn't ask, but I didn't know when they start wondering that from their end. But
well, they'll certainly want to know that you know we've gotten the information out there, but other than that, no.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Is there any other questions regarding the PSR and what Shane has outlined? Seeing none.
Okay. Just some of the feasibility milestones. As I said, we submitted the PDP to MSBA on February 3rd. We're awaiting the MSBA's review and comments. Once we get those, we'll present them to the building committee, and we'll also put together a response and get that back to MSBA. So that's a TBD right now. It's in MSBA's hands. Preferred schematic, so we've just started that. We need to submit that to MSBA on May 4th. That is an MSBA deadline date. If we miss that date, we will not be able to go to the Board of Directors on June 22nd. So we need to keep that in mind as we move forward through the PSR process. That May 4th is a deadline, and we must meet that date to get to the board meeting. Then following the board meeting on June 22nd, assuming approval of the scheme, we'll move straight into schematic design, work through the second half of the year in schematic design, and go to the MSBA board on December 21st, 2022. Given a bit more detail.
Are there any questions regarding the schedule? Shane, the MSBA Board of Directors meeting on December 21st, that's done before the town votes?
Typically, it is, Joe, you don't have to wait. The town can vote before that. But typically you wait until MSBA has approved the project. At that point, you know what the MSBA reimbursement is going to be, what the scope, schedule, and budget is.
Okay. All right.
We can go before that if we so wish.
All right. Are there any other questions regarding the schedule? All right.
So tonight we just wanted to, we talked a lot about MSBA and their reimbursement. So we wanted to kind of give an overview of what their policies are. As I mentioned, this is their policies in general. It's not specific to our project. As we work through PSR and we get some more cost estimates done, we'll be able to give you a better idea of where the town's reimbursement is going to shake out. So this is just an introduction of the MSBA's policies and not necessarily specific to ours. It's general to all MSBA projects. So the MSBA reimbursement rate is calculated pursuant to a formula that's established by the Mass General Laws. They use the same formula for all the towns. There's three criteria they look at: the wealth factor, property values, and the number of the school lunches, the number of those in the district. So there is a formula that they use based on Mass General Law to calculate that reimbursement policy rate. They only reimburse eligible project costs. We keep going back to that eligible project cost. So certain things are eligible, certain things are not eligible. We'll look at that in the next slide. Right now, Wakefield's base reimbursement rate is 49.94% of eligible project costs. That's where you are now. I believe you've been there for a number of years. They review that every year. It tends to move a little bit, but it won't move much. So you can expect your base rate to be about 49.94%. There is an opportunity to get some incentive points from MSBA. I've listed some of the incentive points you can do. Some of them we will qualify for, some we won't. Newly formed regional school district, we won't qualify for that. You can get up to 6 points. Unfortunately, we won't be able to get any of those. The second one, the high efficiency green school program, you can get 2 points for that. We will absolutely pursue that. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the sustainability presentation tonight, but we will look to get those 2 green school program incentive points. Best practices for routine and capital maintenance. As part of the process, the district has already submitted their maintenance plan to MSBA. MSBA reviews that, so they will be giving us some incentive points for that. I have seen them award 2 points in some cases, but not very often. Usually it's somewhere between 1.5 and 1.8. So we hopefully will get a few points there, for a couple of points between 1.5 and 2 points. Overlay district, I think this is something that I'll have to review with the town. I'm not sure that we're going to qualify for this, but if we do, we could get an extra 2 points. And then finally, for renovation or reuse of existing facilities, you can get up to 5 points, depending on how much of the building that you reuse. So if you reuse 50% of the existing building, you'll get 2.5 points. If you reuse 100% of the building, you can get up to 5 points. So that's something as we move through the PSR and we look at that ad reno scheme, we'll take that into consideration. So again, 49.94% is the base. We would hope to add about 3.5 to 4 points to that, and maybe some more if we do go down the renovation and reuse path.
Shane, I got a quick question for you.
Sure, yeah.
As far as best practices for routine and capital maintenance, I know when I worked in North Reading, we did a major building project and we got the 2 points. It added, and 2 points is a lot of money. Who puts that together and how is it pursued? I mean, I know I had a lot to do with putting it together, but
I believe that was submitted during the eligibility period, Wayne. So it was probably Bob Shiroli, the previous facilities director, put that together.
yeah, all right. I mean, that 2 points is 2 points is 2 points. That's pretty substantial.
It is, yeah. Not everybody gets the 2 points. I've seen sort of 1.5, 1.7, but if we can get the 2 points, once MSBA lets us know what our allocation is, if it's anything less than 2 points, maybe we'll review that and see can we resubmit it. But yeah, every point or half point does make a big difference.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
And just finally, so, you know, as we look at this,
Shane, Elizabeth, Liz Martin, you had a question? Hello? Shane?
Yep.
Go, all right, there was a question there. Go ahead.
She has it in the chat.
Okay, all right.
It says, yeah, regarding best practices for maintenance or other points, if MSBA grants 1.8, will they give feedback that is actionable by town to round up to the 2 points is the question.
so as I said to Phil, yeah, if they give us anything less, we will ask for feedback as to why, and look to maybe resubmit to make up that. So the eligible project costs and final reimbursement, that won't be finalized until after the submission of schematic design. So although we'll start working it out during PSR, we'll give you estimates of where we think we are. The final reimbursement will not be established until the end of schematic design when we submit that to MSBA, and we will go back and forth with them reviewing that and that 3011 total project budget form I spoke about. Before we actually establish it at that MSBA board meeting on in December of 2022. So some of the eligible costs, as I said, these are the standard costs for all MSBA projects, and the owner's project management fees are capped at 3% of the construction costs. There was recently a change to that where they put an upper limit of $500 per square foot for the OPM's fee cap. So unfortunately, that reduces what you're going to get from what the previous policy was. But that policy changed in June of last year. Similarly, the architect and engineers fees are capped at 10% and an upper limit of $500 per square foot of construction costs. As you know, when we looked at some of the construction costs during PDP, we're up around $630 to $650 a square foot. So it's a little less. $500 a square foot is a little less than where we're at. So that's capped at $500 a square foot. Construction costs we mentioned before is capped at $360 a square foot, plus any eligible demolition and abatement. So unfortunately, construction costs are a lot more than $360 a square foot. They're $630 to $650 a square foot. MSBA will cap their reimbursement at $360 plus any eligible demo and abatement. If we do decide to build new, we will probably get the full value of the demolition. MSBA do not reimburse for abatement of vinyl floor tiles. I believe there is vinyl floor tiles in the school, so we would not be reimbursed for that. Site work costs are capped at 8% of the construction cost. Furniture, fixtures, equipment is capped at $1,200 per student. Technology is capped at $1,200 per student. These are interchangeable, so they will cap a combination of those at $2,400 per student. I can say that this is our policy for elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. Unfortunately, high schools are more expensive to fit out than the other schools, so we lose out, I guess, a little bit on the high school project. But this has been their cap for some time, certainly as long as I can remember. It's $2,400 total for furniture, fixtures, equipment, and technology. Soft costs. Soft cost is everything other than construction. It's capped at 20% of your construction cost. They will not reimburse anything over 20% construction costs for soft costs. Construction contingency, better known as change orders to a lot of you folks. That's any changes to the construction during the project. It's capped at 1% for new construction projects or 2% for additional reno projects. So you do get a bit more for ad reno, but you would expect that your contingencies will be a little bit higher for an ad reno project. Typically new construction, we carry about 5% construction contingency. Ad reno, depending on the extent of it, could be 7 to 9% construction contingency. So that's capped also by MSBA. And then another new policy that just came out in June of last year, MSBA caps the owner's contingency. This would be contingency for everything other than construction, capped at 0.5% for new construction and 1% for addition renovation projects. So those are sort of the main cost caps from MSBA and their reimbursement policy. Can stop there for questions if anybody has them.
Jonathan, Jonathan?
Sure, thank you. Shane, can you talk a little bit about how the caps on this slide sort of interact with the 49 point whatever % reimbursement rate? So just like as an example, when we talk about construction caps being capped at $360 per square foot, does the MSBA then reimburse us for effectively 50% of that $360, or like what's the order of what's the order of operations?
Yes, so
I guess of the math.
Yeah, they'll reimburse 49.94% of 360.
Okay.
So right now, as I said, we were at 630. So that's $270 that the town would have to pay 100% on. They wouldn't get any reimbursement for that portion of it.
Okay. So from a percentage standpoint, it actually translates down to something in the 30% range, effectively,
Yeah,
given the numbers we're talking about.
Yeah, that's what's known as the effective reimbursement, Jonathan. So you have your base reimbursement, but then the effective is actually, hey, when you get to the full cost and you see what you actually get reimbursed, it's not the 49.94, it's something less than that.
Okay, thank you.
Liz Martin had a question in the chat. What's the interval MSBA and reviews and adjusts for inflation? I had that question too, regarding especially as it relates to the construction cost being capped at $360. Do they review that year? Do they review it? What?
They review that on an annual basis. They don't tend to put it up on an annual basis. This did go up in June of 2021 from $333 a square foot to $360. So this just went up 6 months ago.
Well,
we're not expecting it, unfortunately, to go up again. As I said,
when it go up in June, if they do it annually, would it go up in June?
Not necessarily, Joe. That would be based on their recommendation, but I'd have to go back and look and see how often it's gone up. I did show a chart a few weeks ago or a few meetings ago where I showed that MSBA cap and how it gone up over the last few years. I can get that information.
Yeah, I think that's important because, as we know, with the public safety building, within the past year, costs have skyrocketed.
Right.
For construction costs. I would hope that the MSBA takes a look at that in June.
I'll check that. I can let you know when they've increased that over the last few years.
Thank you. Any other questions on this eligible cost capped by the MSBA?
I have a question. At what point are you locked in terms of like, yes, they may review annually for inflation, but I would assume at a certain point in the process.
That's at that schematic, after schematic design. That's when we're locked in. So we'll submit the schematic design, and coming out of that, we'll be locked in prior to the board meeting in December of 2022. So whatever the project cost and the reimbursement is at that point, that's what we'll be locked into. That's what the MSBA board will vote on, and that's what the town will be expected to vote on. So December 2022 is when we'll be locked in after schematic design.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, Shane.
And then just sort of the bad news, I guess. Some of the cost categories that are ineligible for reimbursement by MSBA. They start off with any costs in excess of the total facilities grant. So the total facilities grant is the term they use for your reimbursement. So if your reimbursement on this project is $60 million, that's known as your total facilities grants. They won't reimburse any costs above what that total facilities grant, which is established after the schematic, is. They will not reimburse any finance costs, so loan principal, interest, short or long-term bonds. They will not reimburse any legal services. They will not reimburse any direct or indirect municipal costs, such as police details, site acquisition costs, which we don't have in this case. They will not reimburse maintenance or service contracts or warranties after the construction project. They do not reimburse any lease, rental, or purchase of storage space that may be required during construction, trailers, containers, etc. They won't reimburse any operating or maintenance costs. These are day-to-day costs for the schools, textbooks, supplies, classroom supplies, or custodial supplies. This one is important. They will not reimburse any costs associated with swimming pools, skating rinks, field houses, and district administrative offices. So obviously this is going to come into play with ours. We do have a field house and some district administrative offices. So we just need to keep an eye on that. But as we've said before, we don't expect the overage in square footage for the field house to be reimbursed, nor do we expect the district offices to be reimbursed. MSBA will not reimburse building and inspection permits. These are the cost to pull a building permit from the town. They expect the town will usually waive those, and we've seen that in most cases that the town waives building permit fees. They don't reimburse any athletic equipment, balls, bats, uniforms, helmets, and any other related equipment. As I said before, asbestos containing floor material, they don't reimburse the abatement for that. This one is important too: lease, rental, purchase, maintenance, or improvement to modular units or swing space. So we've talked about if we do choose the Ad Reno project, that we would more than likely require some swing space and modular classrooms. That would not be reimbursed by MSBA. Utility costs are not reimbursed by MSBA. And then the catch-all, unfortunately, any other cost determined to be ineligible for Mass General Laws, MSBA audit guidelines, or other policies of the MSBA. So of course they throw that in there, but those are the costs that will not be eligible for any reimbursement.
Any questions regarding the costs and eligible for reimbursement from the MSBA? Okay. Shane?
Sorry, Joe, yeah. So just wanted to look at the upcoming meetings. So this has changed a little bit from what we presented at the last meeting. So we're meeting tonight. We looked at the PSR overview, some of the eligible and reimbursable costs. SMMA are going to do a sustainability review tonight. Then in 2 weeks' time, we'll come back. SMMA have been working on some of the design alternatives, 3 options we're looking at to present that in 2 weeks' time. And we'll also start to talk about the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection systems at that point. We're going to look to meet with a couple of those focus groups in late February, the site planning and the ed planning group. We have a public forum penciled in there for March 1st. Have another couple of building committee meetings coming up in early March, March 3rd and March 10th. Again, continue to review the options and some other things that we think is relevant during this phase. Sometime around mid-March, we expect to send information to the cost estimators to start them looking at the cost, so we can report back to the committee in late March. Second half of March, we have 2 more meetings scheduled in there, plus another public forum. And then sometime in April, we're going to look to issue the draft PSR for review. And we'll try and get that certainly in one document, but it may be issued piecemeal as we did with the PDP, and then we'll get a final full document to the building committee prior to a vote, either on April 21st or April 28th, to meet that MSBA deadline on March 4th for the PSR submission.
May 4th.
I said, yeah, May 4th, 5-4, 22. As I said, then we will go to the MSBA facilities subcommittee. They'll meet twice before the board meeting, so that meeting will either be on May 18th or June 1st, and we expect to go to the MSBA board on June 22nd. So those are the upcoming meetings for the next couple of months. We'll continue to review that and make any changes as necessary.
All right.
That's all I had, Joe.
All right, Helen.
Yes, if someone can allow Martine Dion to share her
right.
screen. So I have with me tonight Martine. She's our facilities, not facilities, sorry, sustainability director and a principal with SMMA, and she is our sustainability guru. So take it away, Martine.
Share my screen here. I have it open on 2. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. Good. Does everybody see?
Yep.
Great. All right. So I'm going to give an overview of the sustainability goals and requirements for the project. Am I looking at the right screen here? I can't move it. Okay. I may have to make the screen smaller. I can to control. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to do it a little differently. If that's okay, Mr. Bertrand, I'll share my main screen. Can everybody see the screen?
Yep.
Do this right. All right. Yay. Okay. So we're going to talk about the Massachusetts Energy Code that's going to be in place when we permit this project. If it goes and gets voted and goes to construction documents, as well as the MSBA sustainability requirements. We want to talk about green building certification systems. I'll talk about this. There's a choice of 2, and we have made a comparison to help you hopefully make a decision tonight on which is the preferred. And sustainability discussion, we're going to look at just general sustainability items in the comprehensive sustainability criteria that we would like to introduce as part of the project. So in terms of MSBA, MSBA requires a green building certification, whether it's LEED or Northeast chips. And they want the basic level of certification is their requirement. And that requirement applies to your basic reimbursement, the 49.9 that we just saw earlier. In addition to the green building certification, they require 20% energy and water performance over the Massachusetts Energy Code. Water performance is 20% over the LEED baseline. And they do subsidize the enhanced commissioning of, that's equivalent to the LEED V4 commissioning. So the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, building enclosure commissioning, and an ongoing commissioning plan that's equivalent to 6 points in the LEED green building certification. And with this context of the requirement and the fact that the project has obviously to meet the Mass Energy Code, we wanted to bring to you a little bit of a context. In 2020, in the spring of 2021, the Governor Baker fully approved the Massachusetts Carbon 2050 legislation, which I believe it's HS 2995. That's the law, and that law is looking to work through a set of programs in the next decades or so to get Massachusetts carbon neutrality by 2050. One of the components of the legislation that's upcoming related to this is in net zero energy stretch code. and you'll understand a little later what that means. The next stretch code is coming. I'll talk about this in a minute, but it's coming in 2023. And then through operational carbon reduction, which is really related to building energy use, and transportation carbon reduction, which is related to electric vehicles, there'll be upcoming programs and legislation that will be implemented across the state. And of course, as we talk about sustainability in this project, this building is for the students. So we need to keep in mind the real importance of making sure we include an integrated environmental literacy. And we're looking to include signage on outdoor learning, connectivity to the outdoors, wellness, healthy materials, and embodied carbon, all part of the sustainability goals for the project. So MSBA gives the option between Northeast chips and LEED. And I want to give a good overview of the two systems. We have seen the majority of our communities where we do schools prefer and opt for LEED. We've done chips in the past before LEED has been allowed. I'm sorry, I have a little problem at home. I have an urgency. Can I just go for 1 minute and I'll be back in a second.
Hey Shane, I'm not sure if he's gonna get in any detail around what all this stuff means, but it's like,
okay,
speaking
I'm
Greek,
good.
what does it mean in layman's terms? What is this gonna, you know, what are we gonna, hey Martine.
Yeah, so the idea here is that they're equivalent systems. And we need to basically, as we go through the process of designing the project, we're going to document and design the project to meet the criteria of these green building systems. And they go from sustainable sites, making sure that you have preferred parking, carpooling, that type of stuff. The energy efficiency is another category. So there's 5 categories: water efficiency, energy efficiency, sustainable sites, indoor quality and environmental quality, healthy materials. Those are the 5 major categories. Chips as a 6th category that's quite involved and that requires a lot of documentation from the town, from the community, from the school district. So the difference between LEED and CHIP, overarching, is that CHIP has more criteria to be documented. As you can see here, there's more prerequisites and there's more credits than LEED, and there's more paperwork required for some of those credits and prerequisites from the district than LEED. LEED is heavily, the documentation for LEED is heavily sort of focused on design, the design team and the construction team. So basically, you know, there's double prerequisite for the same result, for the same reimbursement requirement. We need to document 110 criteria for CHIPS and 40 for LEED. We need to document, we need to make sure we meet 28 prerequisites, whereas for LEED, prerequisites is, they are things that you have to do, otherwise you don't get the certification. So there's only 14 for LEED and there's 28 for CHIPS. And then in terms of the owner related documentation that would be required from your school district, and that will require time for your school district, spend time and make policies, and CHIPS is very heavy in policies and guidelines. there's a lot more in CHIPS. There's 13 prerequisite that needs to be documented that way, and there's 15 plus credits. Whereas in LEED, we need a couple of letters for about 4 prerequisites, non-smoking policy, that type of stuff. And then there's potentially 2 credits, owner's credits related to greenhouse keeping. That's one, greenhouse keeping in IPM management. And that really applies if we go for the silver certification. So with that, there's a little bit more detail here.
So if I could jump in, Martine?
Yep.
Yeah, so we just wanted to sort of advise the committee that we have a choice here. There's the CHIPS or the LEED. We need to decide which one we're going to go for during the PSR phase. As Martina said, for lack of a better term, I think LEED is easier to get. Probably 9 out of 10 schools are going for LEED rather than CHIPS. So we just wanted to bring that up this evening, that our recommendation is to go to CHIPS rather than, to go to LEED rather than CHIPS, and maybe get an endorsement from the committee to move forward with that. Once we know which direction we're going to go in, we can start to put together those score sheets and look at the credits that we can potentially get and see what level of LEED we can get. But we need to make a decision on which one we want to go with. The field certainly recommends LEED, and I think Martine, you guys at SMMA recommend it too. So we're looking for a direction from the committee on that.
Just for everybody's information, the Galvin was LEED certified.
Good enough for me. I mean, really,
Why is
what's
there
the
even a CHIPS
advantage,
program?
right? What's the advantage
I'm
and
sorry,
disadvantage for going for one or the other?
As I said, I think LEED, as Martine said, LEED is less paperwork, less credits that you have to get.
Is there a disadvantage to going with LEED?
There's
No.
not. You get the same incentive points from MSBA whether you do LEED or CHIPS.
Then LEED it is. I mean,
so we just wanted to let you know there's a choice, and we hope that you'll take our recommendation and we can move forward with the LEED criteria.
Phil, you had a question?
Tom had his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, my only point was going to be that the Environmental Sustainability Committee, they have a meeting tonight. So I know Robin's not here, and she's been advocating for a lot of the solar and the other conditions. I'm just wondering, do we have a time to reach out to them to see if they have an opinion about this?
We already met with them, right, Shane?
Well, we met with the Sustainability Focus Group for this project, on which Robin sits. So we met with that committee and Robin on Monday.
Yep.
And I think the sense coming out of that focus group was that LEED was the better option to go with.
Okay.
Right.
Certainly, if we want to get a formal opinion from the town sustainability committee, we can, but
I would defer to that committee only because it's their format.
Right.
I would agree. I would defer to that committee.
And their, I think that we'll certainly go to that committee, but their objectives, I think, will be a lot higher than just LEED certification.
I think so. Yeah, I think at minimum silver, and silver is very achievable. We've achieved it, and the majority of our projects go for silver. The question will be, do they want to go higher than that within the budget? I would say,
Jonathan,
right?
you had your hand raised.
Actually, Martine just sort of answered my question, so I'm all set.
Okay.
So what would be the process for putting this before the town's sustainability group?
Tom, do you know when they meet? They're actually meeting tonight. That's why no one's on this meeting.
That's unfortunate.
Right. Again, Robin has been involved in a lot of these meetings, advocating for a lot of these systems. and also, the sustainability portion of this. That's the only reason I feel that, deferring to that committee who's in the town, looking at least these pieces and what their feelings are for it.
Tom, they meet monthly or?
Yeah, I believe it's once a month.
Shane,
again,
But I would just, we're going to do lead our chips, and we shouldn't get confused with sustainability is
Right.
is a whole bigger conversation than just what certification we're going to go for.
the certification we're going to go for, I mean, we have to pick one of those two, and we have to do the certification per MSBA. So that's step one. And then it's about choosing, do we want to go lead, silver, or higher? And that could be decided with that committee. But I would say that the amount of work that could be imposed through going with chips may not be something that, I mean, I don't know if that environmental committee has the say of what the town is going to do, which is why we're asking you tonight, because the weight of the work would be on your staff,
All
on
right,
your town staff.
Shane, when do we need this decision? We don't need it tonight, right?
No, not tonight. I
Okay.
think we had it.
Liz Martin, you had a hand up? You had a question?
I just had a question for Shane. If lead is ultimately approved, but then there's a conversation about certified silver, gold, platinum. Have you ever been involved in sort of doing a cost analysis of that in terms of what it does to, when you have to sort of flush the building at the end? Sometimes there's time, sometimes there's cost. Sometimes you don't really get the payback for the additional certifications. And so there's the one lens of sustainability, but there's also some other factors maybe to discuss.
I think,
Before
yeah, I
you
think,
get to sort of say we're going full tilt for this certification and that impacts design.
Yeah,
we
would absolutely bring that up. It's silver is doable but on budget. We've done it on all of our projects on budget. But if the committee would want to explore gold and even platinum, then yes, I think you're absolutely right. There's definitely that the cost becomes part of the discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Liz.
So I'll continue. I don't know, my computer was jammed, so I will continue in this format. This was just to show you the extent of that extra category and set of criteria, where all of these criteria require a considerable level of documentation, but also policies. Some of these require that the town passes specific policies, and it can be cumbersome. And there's none of that in need. So with that, I'd like to give a little bit of an overview of the Massachusetts Energy Stretch Code. Wakefield has adopted this stretch code in January 2023. There will be a new code cycle. So there will be an updated energy code and an updated stretch code. The OER held a meeting this week, Wednesday, to confirm the schedule to which they're going to take the adoption of these new codes. And I just wanted to give an overview. Currently, the Massachusetts code is based on IECC, International Energy Council, Code Council 2018. In January 2023, we will move to IECC 2021. And then the Massachusetts DOER, Department of Energy and Resources, will add amendments on that base code 2021. Some of those amendments are listed there. The PV readiness of the roof is a requirement of the code now at 40% of usable area. It's going to go up to 50% in January. They will ask for more EV charging infrastructure readiness, and they are asking now. They will ask for demand response capability. And that's the base code. When you move to the stretch code, then the new stretch code, we've looked at a draft, and from Wednesday, there's a new draft, which we're studying right now. I don't have all the details of that yet, but there's a lot of the criteria in the new stretch code that's going to align with net zero energy readiness. So I wanted to bring this to your committee tonight because I know that since the beginning of the project, through the PDP, we've talked about net zero energy readiness as part of this project. And I think that was very prudent to include that in the project because that's what the code's going to be. There will be an opt-in code as well, which is basically the 2021 net zero energy code. So I believe the stretch and this one will be fairly equivalent. But the opt-in code won't be mandated until later in 2023. So,
Bill, you had a question?
What does it mean by readiness?
Readiness, good question. PV readiness means that we make sure that the roof of the building is structurally ready to and designed so that we clear areas, we make areas ready to have a future solar photovoltaic system installed on the roof. We also make sure that the electrical system infrastructure is ready for interconnection of that PV in solar PV system in the future. So that is what PV readiness means. And EV readiness, electric vehicle charging station readiness, means practically the same, but for the parking. So having conduits and sort of ready and making sure that the electric system can take the load of and can connect for those vehicles. So for EV charging infrastructure, the code currently only requires one space readiness, and in this new code, it will require for about 10% of the parking spaces. And then in order to make the LEED certification, we need to comply with the green vehicle credit, and that green vehicle credit requires that 2% of the parking spaces have EV charging station installed.
Thank you. And is the PV only on the roof? They don't allow any other sort of setups for those, like on the ground, or it has to be a roof of a building?
They do not, they require it for the roof. They do not require it for the parking canopy. I think that it would be prudent to discuss that because it could be that in the future, you know, the high school may want to do that. So as part of, I would say as part of schematic design, we can definitely discuss, you know, the parking canopies readiness. But the code itself does not require that you have your parking canopy ready. Any other questions before I move on? Energy efficiency and carbon metrics. So as we move through in setting the criteria with the building systems to meet these goals, the 20% better than code, the stretch code for MSBA, and for those 2 points for MSBA, 2 extra points, and the stretch code, we use these specific metrics, one of which is called EUI, energy use intensity, and that's measuring kBTU per square foot per year. That's taking all of the energy use in the building, heating, cooling, hot water, plug load, etc., all converted to kBTU, and we look at how much kBTU per square foot per year the building uses. Your existing building uses 112 kBTU per square foot per year without air conditioning. What the stretch code is gonna move us towards is 30 to 35 kBTU per square foot per year. So it's gonna be close to 4 times more efficient than your existing building. And the project, whether the project is retrofit, addition, renovation, or new construction, the goal will be 30 to 35 kBTU per square foot per year when you look at the requirements of the code. And we've achieved, Somerville is in that range. Winchester, which is 3 codes ago, we've achieved in the 45 kBTU per square foot per year. And our current Waltham High School is in the upper 30s. It has a comprehensive program. Your school doesn't have to have that heavier plug load. So this is a chart sort of showing where your current school is, where the stretch code, current stretch code is at 40, 50. The new stretch code's probably gonna push it down to the 30, 35 level. And then when we go net zero energy ready, we can push it down below 30 if that's feasible. And how do we get there? Well, the first and foremost important criteria that we really want to focus on is a robust, highly insulated and airtight building enclosure. So you really reduce your energy demand by super insulating, really being mindful of the window to wall ratio. We have a 25% goal, which between 25 and 30% is good. And that's something MSBA appreciates because they've been quite, I would say, critical of schools with too much glazing. So we really pay attention to that. We look into passive house strategies. You may hear that from the environmental committee, from Robin's committee in town. Passive house is another green building system. It's really focused on highly insulated enclosure and thermal comfort and air infiltration reduction. So we follow their concepts as we design the building for net zero energy ready. All electric heating and cooling is something that's really associated with net zero energy ready. So we will look at different types of system. We had that discussion with the environmental focus group, sustainability focus group earlier this week. And then no fossil fuel combustion is preferred. And then high efficiency lighting, plug load, whole building and air infiltration testing, and then the commissioning, which is subsidized by MSBA. All of these contributes to make the goal. And in addition to that, we are going to make sure, on top of the energy focus, we're going to make sure that the project is comprehensively addressing sustainability. So water efficiency, ultra low water use is going to be a part of this project. Now we have a nice little picture here of rainwater harvesting, but the project currently does not have this in its budget. We can certainly discuss it. We've done installations in other communities. There's this particular communities where we did quite a big system to flush toilets, and the next school we did in that community, they didn't want to repeat that. They said that it was high maintenance. So just want to share that today. Looking at sustainable sites, I alluded to that a little bit earlier, outdoor learning classrooms, etc. Making sure we have enhanced indoor environmental quality, whether it's abundant daylight, thermal comfort, acoustical comfort, etc. That's all part of that category. And then healthy and low carbon materials. making sure we have low emitting materials, low VOC, recycled content, forestry certified wood, etc. In post-occupancy evaluation, there'll be a combination of this ongoing commissioning, environmental literacy, and overall energy and water use post-occupancy evaluation. This is an example of, I wanted to bring up, so that this is LEED V4. There's basically a set of criteria with all the categories, and we track those as we move through the design phases. And right now we're tracking at 55, which is at the silver level with the current, PDP level scope. So that's it. I don't know if there's
And
any more
thank you.
questions.
Thank you, Martine. Is there any questions regarding? Liz?
Just on the passive house strategies, you would incorporate, you're just talking about potentially incorporating passive house strategies? Or are you doing that? And would all of the testing components that go with passive house strategies
We are not planning on
Okay.
pursuing passive house certification at all. We're just going for being inspired and aware and cognizant of their strategies. So, and the net zero energy strategies and the stretch code are very much aligned with passive house. Actually, for the residential, the state is now, they have an option that if you do passive house certification for a residence, it's one of the pathway option for the residential code. So, but we're not planning to pursue certification. It's just that this is something that our design team is very much aware of and inspired from to meet the goal of the projects, the goals of the project.
Great, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Tom, I was asking if you could see if you can make arrangements or communicate with that other committee?
No, I can reach out to them. Again, Julie serves on the committee also, so.
Right. That's what I assumed.
Yep.
And if you could have her contact me, then maybe we can then set up a meeting with that, with the sustainability committee.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just that I'm limited in knowledge of each one of those aspects. So to make a decision tonight on either one of them, I'm just not sure what I'm voting on.
Tom, we're not voting on anything, and if you're
Yep.
limited, I'm really limited. So,
yep, no, I'll reach out to them.
let's reach out. I think it's important that we have communication with that committee and to see what their goals are and to see if they're in line with our goals. And then there's the cost issue as well that we have to look at. So all of those things should be all taken into account so that we get a good idea of the range of options that we have and the cost. Okay?
Yep.
All right. Anybody, anything else? Shane, anything?
No, Joe, I'm all set. Thanks.
All right. Helen, anything else?
I think we are good for this evening. Thank you.
All right. And if I don't see anybody else raising their hands, I would be willing to accept the motion, Jason.
Motion to adjourn.
Everybody would agree to just click leave meeting.